Well, hi there. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to my kitchen. Today on the East Coast, it's a miserable and rainy day, so I think it's a great day to make pie. Making pie over the years for me has always felt like a really daunting mountain to climb, and it's because of the pastry. It just seems like it's hard, but it really isn't, especially when you're using Grandma B's no-fail pastry recipe. It's super easy. It's a beautiful dough to roll out. Once you get into it, it's a really lovely experience. The fun thing about it is that it's a nice size recipe, so you can make several crusts and it freezes really easily. So you just put your crust down on a tinfoil pan, and then you can cover that with a layer of parchment paper, add another rolled out crust, and then just keep stacking them like that. Slide them into a Ziploc bag, a large Ziploc bag, and stick it in the freezer. And then when you want to make pie next month, you have the pie crust already made, and it's super easy. So I just want to show you really quick. This is an example of a pie that I made with this pie crust, and I just took it out of the freezer to show you. It's a rabbit meat pie. And so I made this pie from a pre-made crust that was frozen. Then I made my filling and I put it in the pie. And then I put the pie crust on the top and I refroze it so that I can just throw this in the oven when I'm ready to make it. So it's just an example. And this is a great pie crust that you can use for making any kind of fruit filling pie, custard pie, or meat pie, or making tarts. I think this makes a really great butter tart recipe also, but you can use it for anything. So if you're interested in Grandma B's no-fail pastry recipe, come with me. Let's start with some pure lard. We want to use a whole pound of lard. And 4.5 to 5 cups of flour. You can start with 4.5 cups. Then we're going to add 1 teaspoon of baking powder and a teaspoon of salt. And we will crumble this together. I'm mixing it in my machine, but it's really fun and easy to do it by hand or with a pastry cutter. And now in a measuring cup, we're going to add 1 egg and 1 tablespoon of vinegar. And then add enough water to fill the cup. And then we're going to add that to our flour mixture. Mix everything together very well. Now you want to spread some flour out on your workspace and divide the dough into smaller portions. Here I just broke it in half, and then I divided that into 3. And I've got my scale out, so I'm measuring to see if they're equal. I think as I first started rolling this out today, I had small portions about 8 to 9 ounces, and I found that actually to be too large. So I think you could measure that out to be about 6 ounces, and that would give you just the perfect size for rolling out to fit your pie plate. And then you're not cutting off a lot of excess. But you can always take that excess and then roll it back into forming another crust. So this is a really easy way to transfer your rolled out crust into the pie pan by just folding it in half and then half again, and then put it into your plate. And then it just makes it easier to work with. You put the corner of it in the center and then open it up. Make sure it's all flattened inside the pie plate and then just cut around the edges. This crust is going to be a top crust, so I'm going to just cut the circle shape around, a little bit larger than the size of the plate. And I just slip that onto a piece of parchment paper, and then we can pop it right on top of the pie plate where we already have a crust. And then I'm just folding up the paper so it's a little easier to slide into the plastic bag. This is a really easy way to store it for a later use. Pop that right in the freezer. All right, we're going to start with our first pie recipe, and that is rhubarb custard pie. So we're going to need 1.5 cups of sugar and 1/2 cup of flour and 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. Then mix that all together and make a little well in the center. And we're going to add 1 tablespoon of milk, 2 eggs, and a tablespoon of butter, softened butter. And now you want to blend that all together. This is a recipe from Auntie Darlene, and it says on top of the recipe that if it's followed exactly to the T, it's going to be absolutely delicious. So here I'm adding a bit of breadcrumbs. The recipe calls for breadcrumbs, but I only had graham cracker crumbs, so that's what I used. It calls for 4 cups of rhubarb, but actually I found that to be too much for my pie plate, so I just filled it up, and then pouring the custard mixture right on top and evening it out. And the custard just drips through all the spaces in between the rhubarb pieces. And then you want to just dab it with some butter. And here I wanted to make a fun design. That's the best part about making pie, is that you can be creative with the way you arrange the crusts and press down on the edges, and also the design that you put in the center. Now you can cut little strips and make a kind of a pattern of stripes on your crisscrossing stripes on the top of your pie. Here I just use a cookie cutter and cut out a heart. And I'm just going to make a smaller heart and add that to my pie. I think it just adds a little something extra. And we're going to pop this right in the oven. I'm going to bake that at 375 for 50 to 60 minutes. I can't wait to try that one. Here I also made some smaller, like individual pies and designed them in another way and bake them for the same amount of time. Cute. Okay, let's try this recipe. So let's add in 1.5 cups of raisins and 1 cup of water and 1/2 cup of brown sugar. Let's stir this in and dissolve the sugar. And now we want to add 2 teaspoons of cinnamon and 2 tablespoons of flour or cornstarch. Now, as I started mixing this in, I realized, you know what? I think this needs to be in a saucepan. and it wasn't indicated on the recipe. So I threw it in a saucepan on medium heat and stirred that up and letting it come to a boil. I'm adding a daub of butter. So you be the judge how much a daub is to you. I used about a tablespoon, I guess. And now a tablespoon of vinegar. Ooh, that's looking good. Nice and thick. We're gonna take our pie crust and just pour the raisin mixture in there. That looks good. And put your pie crust on top. I add a little bit of water around the edges before I pinch it down, and that just seems to help keep the top crust adhered to the bottom crust. And you can be creative, of course. Again, we're going to pop that in the oven at 375 for 50 to 60 minutes. Here it is. Ooh, bubbly. Boy, it smells good in here. Now pull up a plate and grab a cup of coffee. And which one would you like to try? Tell me in the comments below which one you think would be the most delicious to you. Thanks for watching.